Welcome to the Stokastic MLB Strategy Show. I'm your host, Neil Orfield. You can find me on Twitter at PlayerQDFS. I'm here with Adam Scherer. You can find him on Twitter at ShipMyMoneyDFS. And this show is sponsored by SoRare MLB, which is a collection of digital trading cards and an NFT-based free-to-play baseball game. Adam, how was your weekend?
It was good. Nothing crazy DFS-wise. Almost had a good night Saturday. Late in MMA, I had a chance to win. I had a chance to do well. Ended up not. Needed a little bit less out of Aljo and Evelev, but that was a fun sweat at least. And yeah, I don't know. Went out with some friends, had fun.
Aljo,
winning at DFS soon.
Eljo was the one who I believe you tweeted about. He's apparently very controversial. I have not been tracking this, but apparently people don't think he's very good, but he keeps winning.
Yeah, he got the belt originally because Piotr Jan kneed him in the head while he was down. So Jan got DQ'd and Sterling got the belt. But then he's defended it like 3 times now.
Nice. Good for him. Good for him. I see we got a few new people here. Jose checking in said, hi, new here. And then Fantasy Dysfunctional says, I know nothing about fantasy baseball. Is this a good show to watch and learn about it? Or is this more for advanced players? Yeah, you're in the right place. We answer questions throughout the show. So if you have questions as a new MLB DFS player, we're happy to answer any questions you might have. But in general, we if you have we're going to talk about things maybe a little bit more advanced, like when we're talking about stacks. If you don't know what stacking is, feel free to just stop us at any point. We can go over quickly what we're talking about in terms of leverage, stacking, whatever questions you have. We're happy to answer any questions. By the way, while you're coming in, please do like the video, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and hit that notification button so you can get alerts when our shows go live. Got that in in the first couple minutes of the show this time. I never get it in right away when I should be getting that in, but yeah, please do like the video. Helps us out a lot if you do. We've got an 8-game slate to talk about here, Adam. Do you have any overarching thoughts on this slate?
No.
Perfect. Well, then we can just jump in game by game. We will start with Oakland at the New York Yankees. We have JP Sears on the mound for the A's, Nestor Cortez for the Yankees. Starting with the pitchers, Adam, any interest here?
Yeah, definitely a lot of interest in Cortez here. You have a solid matchup against Oakland. Granted, they are getting out of the Coliseum or whatever they're calling it these days and playing in New York, so a little bit more favorable hitting conditions than usual for the A's, but still a tough pitcher in Cortez. 3.5 implied run total for the A's is relatively low. Cortez coming in second right now in top 2 pitcher percentage on DraftKings at 22%. 41% ownership leads the slate. He's just pretty cheap at 9,400 as well. So you see this pretty often when it comes to the top end pitching, that they're going a little bit over owned when you compare optimal percentage to top 2 pitcher percentage, but you're still talking about one spot in your lineup. Typically not as concerning as when you're getting offenses going significantly over owned, because it is one spot for your pitcher. And then also, while there is still a lot of volatility, and we have seen that lately with a lot of good pitching not doing well, it's still going to, it's still more projectable than hitters. It's still going to come through more often than hitters are. So I'm not overly concerned by the fact that he's pulling 41% ownership. If in individual lineups you want to get away to some lower owned pitchers, that's fine. But I think it's pretty warranted. Cortez is just a solid arm. On the other side, JP Sears going up against the Yankees. Not really much reason to get there. He has shown good strikeout stuff against right-handed hitters so far this year. I'm not sure that I totally buy it, but 30.8% strikeout percentage to righties this year. Since the start of last year, it's just 21.5%. 208 expected ISO to them since the start of last year, 270 this year. So either way, he's had issues limiting right-handed power. If you buy into the new strikeout numbers, then there's a little bit more upside. But either way, not a great matchup here going up against Volpe, Torres, LeMahieu from the right side. You are still missing Stanton, Judge, Donaldson, so that waters down the lineup a bit, but still unlikely you really need to get to Sears.
I did not realize that Stanton is also out. Is he on the IL?
Yeah, as far as I know.
Yeah, it sounds right. I was just looking at I did a SoRare video already this morning, and I was noting that both the Yankees and Rays have 4 games in fantastic matchups. And I was noticing the Judge cards are like $14 or something. Or no, sorry, Stanton cards are like $14, something ridiculous right now. So I was thinking about purchasing one, but maybe not for this particular slate. All right, how about the bats in this game? Any interest?
Yeah, I have interest more so in the Yankee side. I think Cortez is a very good pitcher, not really looking to get to Oakland all that much unless you're just trying to get, leverage against a popular pitcher, that's fine, but probably not the approach I'll be taking here. As far as the Yankees go, like I said, you have seen Sears struggle with right-handed power. You have a reasonably priced Volpe that should be leading off at shortstop. That's going to look like a pretty solid value. Gleyber Torres looks good. LeMahieu's likely hitting cleanup. He's cheap. Bader has moved up to I think he was hitting 5th yesterday. He's still pretty cheap. So the nice trade-off with the Yankees here, you're not going to be as confident in their offense since you are missing 3 of their best hitters, including, obviously their best hitter in Judge, but you do get some value instead. So, normally when those guys are in, it's like, all right, well, there's a bunch of power in the Yankees lineup, but you have to pay for all of it. Now there's not as much power, but they are still facing a pitcher that is prone to giving up power to righties, and most of the lineup is cheap now.
Okay. And then how would you rank the 4 sides of the game?
Cortez 1, Yankees 2, I guess A's 3, Sears 4. The Sears and the A's are kind of similar to me, where they're both very low probability plays. They're also both you could at least make a tournament case for both of them. The A's are really cheap as a stack and not getting much ownership. Sears is going quote unquote under owned, but you're talking about a 6% chance of being a top 2 scoring pitcher and 1% ownership. So neither one is likely to come through. They are both going under owned though.
Okay. Brian Ferrero says Indica Adam. James Johnson says Sativa. Adam, do you know the difference?
No.
Yeah, Adam does not consume any marijuana products, so does not. He's people often assume that Adam is a big consumer of marijuana. That it would piss Jordan off. So we were talking after a show one time, and I used the words consume marijuana, and Jordan was like, "I don't even want to talk to you anymore." but it's because I drink my THC drinks, so I'm like, I have to use consume. I'm not smoking. I'm just drinking my THC.
Yeah.
So that's the way I talk about it. But yeah, Jordan was like, I can't talk to you anymore using the words consume marijuana. All right. Well, we can move on to the second game of the slate, which is St. Louis versus Chicago Cubs. Miles Mikolas on the mound for the Cardinals, Marcus Stroman for the Cubs. Any interest in these pitchers, Adam?
A little bit in Stroman. 3.3 implied run total for the Cardinals is pretty low. $8,800 price tag on Stroman is reasonable. For most of his career, he hasn't been a great strikeout guy. He has shown an improvement so far this year, at least to some extent. The Cardinals are a really weird lineup to take pitchers against, too. If you look at the hitters in this lineup, there's plenty of name value. There's plenty of guys that, either have a track record of being good or are supposed to be good as young players, but they've also overall just not been very good so far this year. You have 50-degree temperatures in Chicago. Looks like the wind shouldn't make much of an impact. If anything, it's blowing in, and that's why you only have a 7-run implied total here. So 14% ownership coming into Stroman. I don't really have a problem with that. So far this year, he has struck out 26% of right-handed hitters compared to 18.7% last year. So certainly possible that he's made some adjustments in that regard, and that you're going to get more strikeouts. He's always been somebody that has good stuff, and I've always thought a lot of the reason he didn't get strikeouts was just preferring to get ground balls and end at bats early as opposed to chasing strikeouts. So, new team, maybe you're seeing a little bit more of an emphasis on strikeouts, but either way, it's a reasonable price tag for him. Mikolas is also cheap at $6K. He's not a very good strikeout pitcher. We haven't seen anything suggesting that's going to change, but he is getting 18% ownership just because he has a 25% chance of being a top 2 value pitcher. You do only have a 3.7 implied run total for the Cubs. So I don't have a lot that I can say about Mikolas as far as this is why I think he's going to have success, or this is why I think he's a good play. It's simply he's cheap, and you're just hoping that he does a good job limiting power. He typically does. Since last year, only an 18% strikeout percentage to righties, 20% to lefties, but only a 170 expected ISO to righties, 144 to lefties. So, average to slightly above average at preventing power at 6K in favorable pitching conditions. I think that's fine. I will say also in large field tournaments, 18% ownership coming into Mikolas. This is one spot where we just talked about JP Sears, and I said, I don't think you really need JP Sears, but he is getting 1/18 the ownership of Miles Mikolas. He's about 2/3 as likely to be a top 2 scoring pitcher. So that's just one example where in a large field tournament lineup, maybe you do just pivot some Mikolas to Sears or other guys in this range that are getting no ownership, because Mikolas does project the best of the group, but he's not actually very good.
Okay. Do you have any interest in the bats in this game?
Not really. The pitchers are good enough. The wind's blowing in. If I did go to bats, I'd be more likely to get to the Cubs side of it. Ian Happ in particular looks decent, lefty righty against Mikolas. Bellinger looks okay, but We do have Matt Mervis now in the player pool on DraftKings. He's 2,200. I think that's worth a mention. He's a pretty big time power hitting prospect. Only $2,200. First base only, so you do have the opportunity cost that comes with that. But projects, Steamer has them projected for a 194 ISO this year. Zips 192. The bat 169. The bat typically hates every single prospect though, so 169 isn't like any sort of an indictment. It's relatively high for how that system normally projects prospects. So the power is there, and he is only 2,200.
Okay, and then how would you rank the four sides of this game?
Stroman 1, Michaelis 2, Cubs 3, Cards 4.
Okay. Dave Cutsale asks, will Ohtani hitting stats count tonight in DraftKings DFS? Is Ohtani starting? Ohtani's not starting, so yes, Ohtani's.
So yes.
Yep. So they always count unless he is the starting pitcher, in which case they have him eligible at starting pitcher instead of as a batter. So yeah, Ohtani's stats will count tonight. Do you remember how Mervis did? Everybody was talking about how they wanted to play Mervis and couldn't on Saturday. Do you remember if he did anything this weekend?
So he's played 3 total games, 14 plate appearances. He has scored a run, struck out 43% of the time. He's hitting 286, no home runs.
So okay, so he hasn't had
his ISO is 0. You didn't miss anything so far.
Okay, so maybe this is the game. We can play him on the first game that he's gonna hit a home run. All right, we have 6 more games to talk about. I do want to go into my SoRare account early today because I think that I'm going to be making some adjustments throughout the week, Adam. I think that one thing that I need to do is be swapping out some of these common cards that I have because I did such a poor job choosing common cards that I think now I need to go in and make some swaps. And since it's 24 hours, I figure the first day of the week, I should do this relatively early. It'll be a bit later throughout the week. So I'm going to try to do this right away, make some swaps. And of course, I'm hoping to get some Yankees and or Rays bats here. So I'm going to go right into, I've got my account pulled up here. You can see some of my cards. And I just made a video before this explaining that I think the bats to target this week on SoRare are going to be the Yankees and the Rays because they're in relatively good matchups and each team has 4 games. So I think that this is a slate where I just want to be playing Yankees and Rays bats, as I already explained. But for now, I want to go in and make a swap using my free swap for the day in the common cards. I believe I don't have any eligible starting pitchers though. So I was going to say, I want to focus on some of those bats, but let me just double check this. I don't think I have any eligible starting pitchers. Yeah. So I should probably try to get a pitcher who's going to be eligible here. So maybe that's what I'll do instead. Go back to my cards, make a swap. And I imagine that I'm going to get, like, whoever I swap out, I'm going to get a pitcher of about the same caliber. So I think that I'm going to swap out this DeGrom and try to get a pitcher who's starting this week. Does that make sense to you, Adam?
Yeah, I think so.
Just try to get a pitcher who is actually going to play. All right, I'm going to swap out for a starting pitcher. Kershaw, Alcantara, McClanahan, Burns, or Luis Castillo. I know McClanahan is starting this week at the very least.
Alcantara pitched yesterday.
Okay, so he's probably not going to pitch in the next.
He'll probably pitch once.
Oh, that's right. So he'll probably pitch on Thursday. Actually, I have this pulled up already, but we don't have. Wait. It's Miami playing. Miami's not playing on Thursday, so he's probably not going to pitch until Friday, I would guess, since they have the day off on Thursday.
Friday or Saturday, probably.
Yeah, so he won't be in this on this slate. Do we have a Kershaw start? I don't see the Dodgers must be here somewhere, right? Oh yeah, here we go. Kershaw versus the Brewers. Yeah, Burns must be playing the Dodgers then. What do you think of Kershaw versus the Brewers? Or I think Gallen is actually facing, sorry, not Gallen. I think McClanahan is actually facing the Orioles. So who would you rather have between McClanahan against the Orioles or Kershaw against the Brewers?
Probably McClanahan.
All right, I'm going McClanahan. Easy call there.
How long is the set of games? Like, what day does it run through?
It runs Monday through Thursday and then Friday through Sunday.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, you gotta a lot of times like this week I can't play my Spencer Strider because he's not projected to start during this
Yeah.
period.
I was thinking full week. I was like, McClanahan pitches today, so you probably get 2. But either way, it's probably McClanahan.
All right, I'm doing it. I'm going swapping out DeGrom for McClanahan. Feels like a swap in the wrong direction here. But, DeGrom's been hurt so much that I'm okay with it. So now I can potentially play that. Anyway, that is if you are looking to get started on So Rare MLB. That swap that is made, that is using the common cards. You get those common cards when you sign up for So Rare. So it doesn't cost any money if you just want to dip your toes in, kind of see how it works. And in those common contests, you can actually win limited cards that you can then sell on the marketplace. So the common cards, you can't sell them, the cards you get for free, but you can use those cards to enter contests and potentially win some prizes, including some limited prizes that you can actually sell on the marketplace. Some of them are worth good money. So check out So Rare. I just put the link in the description of this video. It's a lot of fun. I wish we were talking about So Rare NBA instead of MLB Adam, because I'm absolutely crushing So Rare NBA. Not as fun to talk about when I'm really bad at So Rare MLB so far. I'll show you what I mean by that. When I say I'm really bad, in the most recent contests, I got I was near the bat, 18, nearly 1900 out of 2400. So not my best showing so far. After winning a prize last week, regressed a little bit this week, but we will get back to this slate. I got 14th out of just over 5,000 in NBA this week. So sadly, we can't talk about how that's going. All right, we will move on back to the slate. We have 6 more games to talk about, starting with the White Sox at the Royals. We have Dylan Cease on the mound for the White Sox, Zach Greinke for the Royals. Adam, any interest in these pitchers?
Certainly no interest in Greinke. Just not a great pitcher at this point. But also, we saw a really big red flag last start out. He actually pitched well. I think it was against Baltimore, but I could be wrong there. But pitched well and still was pulled after 5 innings at I don't know, 50 pitches or something insane. So if you're gonna get if you're not gonna get him going deep in the games, even when on the rare occasions he's pitching well, it makes it really tough to get there. Cease on the other side, more interesting. Still a 4 implied run total here for Kansas City as we continue to see warm weather there. So that's favorable for hitters. But Cease is a very good strikeout pitcher, not pulling as much ownership as some other top end pitchers today. Only 14%, 17% chance of being a top 2 pitcher. So you are seeing him 4th in top 2 pitcher percentage. The 3 pitchers ahead of him, Zach Gallen, Cortez, Logan Gilbert, they're all projected for at least double the ownership, if not more. So it makes Cease pretty interesting in tournaments, even though he doesn't project quite as well as those guys. Still a very, very high ceiling for him. Not that big of a gap in terms of chances of success versus most of them. So I do like him as a tournament play, but you probably will still be getting to Gallen, Cortez, Gilbert first.
Okay. How much interest in the bats in this game?
Not too much. The White Sox would be the side that I get to first. 5 implied run total, 4.5 implied run total. Decent hitting weather here, like I said, 80 degrees, so relatively warm. The White Sox offense isn't great, but Zach Greinke also not great. So you do get some upside with them. Looking at the top stacks tool, they're 3rd with a 10.5% chance of being the top stack. Also 1st in top value percentage. So if you look at their aggregate ownership at 13% and compare it to top stack percentage, it would suggest that they're going over-owned. But when you factor in the value component, they really aren't. Stack score is the highest on the slate. That's the metric that we use to weight top stack percentage and top value percentage. So the White Sox do look pretty good here, all things considered. Just cheap across the board. Tim Anderson is $5,400 on DraftKings. Every other hitter, with the exception of Luis Robert, is below 4K, and Robert's only 4,200. So this is a team that you can stack in a pretty good spot and then do whatever you want, whether it's pay up for pitching, whether it's round it out with high upside one-offs. There's a lot of ways you can construct high upside lineups around this team.
Okay, and then how would you rank the 4 sides of the game?
White Sox 1, Cease 2, Royals 3, Greinke 4.
All right, perfect. Kyle B, did I just hear a flannel god dong pick? I don't think I made a dong pick already.
I think you said Purvis.
Oh, did I say that is right? Good call. Well, I'm gonna maybe I'll switch it up later. All right, I wanted to ask this question from James Johnson, especially knowing that we've got some new people in here. It says, "Yo, Neil or Adam, what is your preference of stack types, and what is the ideal max ownership on a slate of this size?" I don't have an answer for the ideal max ownership on the slate of this size. Honestly, it's something that I look at the projected ownership for a stack as a whole. It's probably something that maybe I should be looking at it a little bit closer, but I don't actually. I've never really looked at the actual ownership on a per lineup basis, like what is ideal. And then favorite stacks on a slate this size, I'm probably going to be using 5-man primary stacks, and then a mix of like 5-3, 5-2, 5, and no secondary stack. Adam, what about you?
Yeah, that's the same for me. So as far as max ownership, I don't have a number. I'd never really know what mine look like. I compare the way I do it is like kind of comparing a bunch of different lineups and what their ownership product or ownership sum are. So it ends up being relative to everything else that I could potentially play. There's not like a hard and fast rule that I use as far as capping it. As far as the stacks on FanDuel, I pretty much build 4-4 or 4-3. On DraftKings, predominantly 5-3, 5-2, and 5-1. Also mix in some 4-4 and 4-3.
Okay, perfect. Den says, Neil looking extra youthful. I always appreciate your support, Den. Neil looking extra youthful today. Den and I are in a Discord together where people were talking about how old I look. People were like, you're only 39. I thought you were definitely older than that. And then Den came to my defense. Den, of course, has been absolutely crushing. MLB has won a couple contests already in the past couple weeks. So congrats on Den, and thank you for your continued support. Trey McCall says, is SoRare available in Pennsylvania? I'm on the site and trying to figure out what states are available. I don't know off the top of my head, and I don't know how to check that really quickly. So sorry, Trey. I will see if I can figure that out later on, but I don't know off the top of my head if it's available. I would imagine that if you're on the site and able to play, that it's probably available. You can probably at least play the common contests that are free, but honestly, I don't know exactly. I'll see if I can get back to you on that. And then Michael Bernier says, place 3 out of 30,000 using the lineup generator. It works great. Thank you. That is so awesome to hear. Was that MLB or NBA? What sport was that, Michael? That is very cool. Yeah. It says, thank you, only $250, but good for $1. Yeah, I mean, it's all about the ROI. So if you're playing the smaller contests, getting 3rd out of 30,000 is just awesome. Really cool to hear that, Michael. And on that note, because Michael brought up using the lineup generator, I want to let you guys know that we have an easy, painless way to, if you want to check out lineup generator, you can do so using our May bundle package. Let me see what the details are here. I know I've got it here. Oh yeah. Okay. So as you know, Steve Buzzard has been on an absolute heater, and as a result, we've got this May bundle deal going on. And the way it works is you can sign up for a Stokastic package either weekly or monthly. Whichever package you decide to sign up for, you're going to get your first 3 days for $5. So whichever package you think that you want to sign up for long term, you just sign up for it. Use the promo code May Bundle when you sign up, and you're going to get your first 3 days of that package for just $5. So if you just want to check it out, use that May Bundle promo code. Of course, it will, if you don't cancel your subscription, it's going to auto renew at the end of those 3 days. So just keep that in mind. If you're only wanting to try it for 3 days, you will have to cancel it, or it's going to auto renew. But it's a fantastic deal if you just want to check out our package. And that, of course, includes lineup generator as well as projections, ownership projections, top stacks tool, top pitchers tool, all the stuff that we're talking about all day. The only thing it doesn't include, I think, is fantasy. I know it doesn't include fantasy cruncher. Maybe there are other things, but it includes almost everything that we have to offer. Everything that Adam and I are talking about on these shows is included in this deal. So if you want to check out these Stokastic tools, including this lineup generator, which helped Michael get 3rd out of 30,000 lineups in a contest, check out that package using promo code MAYBUNDLE or the link in the description of this video. You're going to get your first 3 days of Stokastic Plus Platinum for just $5, whether it's a monthly or a weekly package. All right, we can move on to the 4th game of the slate, which is sorry, actually, did you already rank the 4 sides of the White Sox Royals?
Yeah.
Okay. Then we will move on to the 4th game of the slate, which is Dodgers at Brewers. We have Tony Gonsolin on the mound for the Dodgers, Freddie Peralta for the Brewers. Starting with the pitchers, Adam, any interest there?
Yeah, 2 solid enough arms. Tough matchup for Peralta, pulling 10% ownership, 14% chance of being a top 2 pitcher. So he's another one where, you're not prioritizing him to the same extent as you are guys like Cortez that we've already talked about, but he's kind of comparable to Cease in that he's going a little bit under-owned relative to his chances of being a top 2 scoring pitcher. He does still have very good strikeout stuff. It is a brutal matchup with the Dodgers. So that's why you're not getting as much ownership. There is a little bit of added risk there, but you can certainly still look to him in tournaments. Gonsolin, at 7,300, pulling 3.5% ownership, 8% chance of being a top 2 pitcher. Typically a pretty short leash on him for the Dodgers. He missed the beginning of the season as well. So I'm not expecting him to go particularly deep in this game. I am pulling up his last start just to see exactly what he did. But that's the biggest thing that the biggest reason I think he's only getting 3% ownership. He did throw 80 pitches last time out, 4 2/3 innings, gave up 3 earned runs. The fact that he went 4 2/3 does suggest, that they were willing to let him go 5. He just didn't make it out of that inning. So I guess a little bit high. Maybe I like him a little bit more than I thought I was going to, just because he did throw 80. Let's say he throws 80 to 85 pitches here at 7,300. He is a pretty good pitcher. He is only getting 3% ownership. I still don't want to go crazy getting to him, but he is relatively inexpensive. He's $1,300 more than Michaelis, but getting 1/6 the ownership. He's okay in tournaments, I guess, as far as under-owned pitchers go, but still wouldn't be going too crazy there, because I'm certainly not expecting him to go out there and give you like 7 innings or anything.
Okay. Yeah, kind of an interesting spot for Gonsolin. Isn't he? I feel like Gonsolin's a guy that I've heard over and over is due for negative regression. Like, it's been like the case for his whole career. Is that still the case? Is that something that you see at all, Adam?
I don't really think so. I've always viewed him as a pretty good pitcher. So
Okay.
he was, I think it might have been last year when he was in the running for Cy Young. Maybe it was 2 years ago. Like, he was due for regression, but he was due to, I guess it was last year. He was due to regress to a point where he was still good. Like, for
Okay.
example, last year his ERA was 2.1. His expected ERA is 3.1. His FIP was 3.28. He was still a good pitcher. He just also got lucky on top of that.
Okay. Interesting. I want to see. I asked
Yeah,
Michael.
207 BABIP. Okay, that's a little insane.
Yeah. Okay.
For his career, though, it's only 223.
So he has regressed though back to about where he should be, or
I mean, he's only made 2 starts this year, so
okay, right.
he's only gone 8 innings.
I asked Michael which sport he won in. He says it was NBA. It says Facebook went crazy. Guess everyone thought I was dead. You're celebrating on Facebook. That's fun. I've never done the celebrating on Facebook thing. I'm usually in Discord. If you're wanting to chat with people who are also playing DFS, make sure you're checking out our Discord, Michael, because everybody's going to be tracking and cheering for you there as well. But he said he says I was a Pro Bowler for 25 years, long time ago. Are you talking about a football Pro Bowler? No, I'm kidding. I'm guessing that Michael is a bowler when he says a Pro Bowler. Have you ever said the words, "Who do you think you are? I am," Michael? I'm curious because that's the only Pro Bowler that I am familiar with is the "Who do you think you are? I am" guy, which I love that. That was so good. Adam, how are you as a bowler?
I used to be okay because I worked at a bowling alley in high school.
Oh.
But now I suck, and it just pisses me off because I used to be better.
Were you did you ever break 200?
Yeah.
Okay, so you're actually
also
good.
I was considerably better at the bowling alley I worked at, just because I guess
the
lanes are
lanes,
inconsistent. Yeah. I
slick
remember
they are.
I remember going to a different one with friends and being aggressively worse than I was at work, and not realizing that was a thing until then.
Assuming you're going to be able to show off for them, get over 200, and then it's oh, the ball doesn't move how it's supposed to.
Yeah, exactly.
Huh. Trey McCalso says Pete Weber is the only guy I know too. Michael Bernier, I don't know what what to make of that comment. So I guess I'm not going to read it on the show. Pete's dad. Oh, okay. Now I get what you're saying now. I think Pete's dad name is Dick. He said, I know Pete's dad, Dick. Oh, it's did you see it now?
Oh, now I see it. Yeah. No.
I was like, I don't know what to make of. There's so many different interpretations I can have of this comment. But then he added, I'm old. Okay, so Michael's an old guy who knew Pete Weber's dad. Okay, I get it now. That's cool. That's very cool. All right. I had other comments. I was going to tell you the story. I am not my goal in bowling is typically to break 100. I think that I've gotten close to breaking 200 just once, but it was in when I was bowling with my old company. I won a trophy because I bowled 190 something, which was just 30 better than I've ever done previously. So yeah, not typically a good bowler, but apparently I have some outlier performances here or there.
Yeah, I want to say when I was working and the one lane one bowling alley I was good at, I want to say 210, 220 was normal, and I probably got 240 occasionally.
Damn, that's really good. That's
but then that dropped off a lot if I went anywhere else.
Sure. Yeah. All right. Moving on to Oh,
And
we haven't done the bats yet,
P.
right?
Weber's dad was named Dick, to clear up all of that.
You did look it up. Okay.
Yeah. I was really hoping his name was about to be like Frank or something.
That would have been hilarious. All right. Bats, Dodgers versus Brewers. Any interest in the bats in this game?
Not really. Two solid enough pitchers here. You can always go to the Dodgers. I tweeted yesterday, I think if you just stack the Orioles, the Rays, and the Dodgers every day, you probably are making money over the course of the year. But the Dodgers are one of those teams where they're not going to get much ownership today because they're facing a good pitcher in Peralta. They are actually still getting 8% ownership, but 8.5% chance to be in the top stack, fourth in the top stack tool, tied with the Yankees. So still happy to get to the Dodgers. They just have so much power in their lineup, but Peralta's not somebody you love targeting. On the other side, Gonsolin typically does a pretty good job limiting power. Brewers are middle of the pack, 6% chance to be in the top stack, 4% projected ownership. So going a little bit overlooked. It is a solid park for hitting. Both teams do have a 4.2 to 4.3 implied run total. So in tournaments, I think they're okay, but neither one is the most likely teams to succeed or anything.
Okay. And how would you rank the four sides of this game?
This one's really close. It's all just like mediocre stuff across the board. Peralta 1, Gonsolin 2, Dodgers 3, Brewers 4.
Okay, nice. David Schneider says Earl to Pearl Anthony is apparently another pro bowler. And Michael says, I was drinking with Earl the night before he died. That's really cool. It sounds like Michael has some cool bowling stories. Michael, I'm curious, did you ever bowl 300? Like, is that like, if you're a pro bowler, is it like assumed that you bowled 300 at some point, or is that still like a great feat that is pretty rare? I'm curious to hear if Michael has ever bowled 300, because that is a very cool feat if you have bowled 300. Jenna Sandy says, I like to bowl, but couldn't do the math. Yeah, I would never go to a bowling alley where I had to do the math myself. I think I could figure out like most of it, but like they're just like the last frames is where it's like, I don't quite know exactly how this works. I'm sure, Adam, you could do it. You worked at a bowling alley, so you probably understand how it all works. But I'm like a little bit confused at the end of the game, how to score.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know how quickly I could do it now. I used to understand it pretty well.
Yeah. Stephen Leawood says, Neil, is it true that Minnesota, like Massachusetts, has that strange variant of candlepin bowling? We might have a candlepin bowling alley here, but it's like definitely not a thing. Like I had never heard of candlepin bowling until I moved to Massachusetts. I don't know if I ever actually went candlepin bowling. It basically all of my friends described it as bowling, but less fun is essentially how candlepin was. Have you ever played, Adam?
Bowling?
It's bowling where you use a much smaller ball and like thin pins that are like not as close together. So it's
is
like,
it the same as duck pin?
Never heard of duck pin. I would imagine duck pin is like fat on the bottom. Isn't that like, wouldn't it look like a duck?
Okay, so I'm looking now, and yeah, it is different.
Yeah. Yeah. So I have never gone candlepin bowling. Really can't tell you much about it. All right. We can move on to the next. If anybody, people who are commenting on this, Michael says, I was the best fat drunk bowler. Did he answer? Got drunk with Guppy. Yes. Oh, so he bowled he bowled 313 times. Okay, that's kind of what I thought. Like pro bowlers probably do bowl 300, but I wasn't entirely sure.
Mookie Betts is like an incredibly good bowler, right?
I did not know that.
Oh yeah,
that's cool. Like, could be maybe he will be professional after he's done with baseball. Seems like one of those sports that you could play until you're pretty old.
He has at least 5 300 games.
Damn. All right.
The article I just pulled up.
Wow. I guess not a shock like that. If you're a professional athlete, you're going to be good at other sports and like super competitive. So, but still, that's really impressive. All right, we're halfway through. We're up to Houston at the LA Angels. We have Hunter Brown on the mound for the Astros, Patrick Sandoval for the Angels. Any interest in these pitchers, Adam?
Hunter Brown at 9,200 looks pretty good. It's a tough park to pitch in. The Angels do have plenty of power in their lineup, but Brown is a good young arm. I like him in tournaments. He's similar to Peralta, getting half the ownership of Peralta, but a 13% chance of being a top 2 pitcher. Just going a little bit under-owned relative to his chances of success, even if those chances of success aren't quite as high as other guys. Like, for example, you compare him to Nestor Cortez, who's second in top 2 pitcher percentage at 22%. So more or less twice as likely to be a top 2 scoring pitcher as Brown, but he's projected for 8 times the ownership. And you kind of see that sort of disparity between the guys at the top and Brown. So in tournaments makes some sense. Patrick Sandoval's a decent enough pitcher. I don't really want to get to him too much against Houston. Only pulling 3% ownership, 8% chance of being a top 2 pitcher. 6,900, decent value. He's certainly somebody you could use as a pivot away from Michaelis, for example, but easier, I think, to make a case for Hunter Brown than for Sandoval.
Okay. And then what about the bats in this game?
Houston never really mind getting to them, and you are getting a good park to hit in, but they are second right now in top stack percentage. That's kind of surprising to me, but 11% or 10.7% chance of being the top stack is actually tied with the White Sox. 8% projected ownership, since they are a little bit more expensive. Since the start of last season, only a 125 expected ISO to righties for Sandoval, sub 100 to lefties. More of the same this year, sub 100 to lefties, 133 to righties. So this is why I was saying that I'm a little surprised Houston's as high as they are, just because Sandoval's typically good at limiting power, but I said it a lot, and we've seen it recently. I'm like, my first thoughts on a team, if they're different than what the data is suggesting, like, you should trust the data, and I end up trusting the data. So yeah, I'm surprised they're showing up as high as they are. It's hard for me to like articulate why I would like them that much, but they are a good offense, and it is a good park to hit in. For the Angels, middle of the pack, 5.5% chance of being the top stack, 3% projected ownership. Brown is a good young pitching prospect. He's had success so far in his limited time in the majors. Sub 100 expected ISO to righties, only 102 to lefties, striking out righties at a 28% clip, lefties about 25%. So you're not looking at anything you're excited about facing, but you do still have Mike Trout and Shohei Ohtani in a lineup, not to mention plenty of other guys that have some power. So there's always some appeal in going to the Angels, just because you're getting 2 of the best hitters in baseball, but Brown is not an ideal matchup.
Okay. And then how would you rank the 4 sides of the game?
I would rank it Hunter, Brown, Houston, but I trust the tools more than me. So I'll go Houston 1, Brown 2, Angels 3, Sandoval 4.
Okay.
And this is another game where the total here is just kind of surprising to me. Like, you have a 4.6 implied run total for the Astros, 4.4 for the Angels. This is why they're showing up higher than I expected in the top stacks tool. I was just surprised to see a total that high.
Right. Yeah. Relatively high total for these pitchers, but yeah, good offenses as well. Stephen Leibowitz added about Candlepin bowling, and the wood stays on the lane in Candlepin. I think they're wood pins. So I think he's saying that the pins stay on the lane in Candlepin bowling, and also apparently you get 3 balls, so they're smaller, but you get 3 of them to throw. So like, you're trying to, I guess it's a different game, because you're not just aiming for the standing pins. You're probably aiming for the pins that are on the ground, I would imagine. So it's kind of interesting. And then James Johnson said about Mookie Betts, I think he won the Ohio High School Bowling State Championship as well. That's kind of cool. And then Jenna says, my Candlepin bowling alley burned down. Sad. Hopefully they reconstruct it. All right. We have 3 games left. Wait, did you rank the 4 sides of the Houston LA game?
Yes.
Okay. Then we'll move on to Texas at Seattle. We have John Gray on the mound for the Rangers, Logan Gilbert for the Mariners. Starting with the pitchers, Adam, any interest?
Yeah, Gilbert's coming in as one of the highest owned pitchers, and probably should. Really tough matchup against Texas. That's the scary part, and why I think you can definitely make a case to be moving some of that ownership to other pitchers. But he is a good pitcher. He is 9K. You're in a good park in Seattle. So all of that's working for him. 3.5 implied run total for Texas certainly stands out, considering how good Texas has been offensively, for them to only have a 3.5 implied run total. So Gilbert does look good. Again, it is a scary matchup against the Rangers. You're never going to feel very good about taking a very, a 35% owned pitcher against a lineup as good as Texas. But Gilbert is a good young pitcher. 30%, 29.5% strikeout percentage so far this year, 3.15 FIP. Going back to last year, I think he was a bit lower in strikeout percentage, but still solid. 23.8% since the start of last year, 3.41 FIP. Just a good pitcher. Again, I think he's going a little bit over-owned, and if you wanted to turn some of that Gilbert exposure into, say, Dylan Cease for $700 more, or even Zach Gallen, if you can find $1,200, moving some of it to Brown makes sense at 5% owned. But Gilbert does project as one of the better pitchers today. On the other side, for Texas, John Gray pitching 7,700, pulling 8% ownership, 10% chance of being a top 2 pitcher. He's decent. It's not an ideal matchup against the Mariners. 4.5 implied run total there. Going a little bit under-owned, but nothing that looks too great.
Okay. Jake Swale says that he also bowled a 300. That's impressive. And then there's one other comment that I wanted to mention. Anyway, we'll move on. How about the bats in this Texas-Seattle game?
Yeah, some interest. I mean, some interest in the Rangers just because they're such a good offense and they're facing a really popular pitcher. I don't know how easy they'll be to get to. Like, they clearly don't project well, but just the talent standpoint there is kind of interesting when you pair that with facing a 35% owned pitcher, but more likely to get to the Seattle side. 4.5 implied run total against Gray. Middle of the pack in top stack percentage at 5%, 6.5% projected ownership. Gray is a solid enough pitcher. Typically, don't go too far out of my way to target him. He has struggled so far this year, though. Limited sample. We're a month and a half into the season, but 268 expected ISO to lefties with just an 11% strikeout percentage this year for Gray, 172 to righties with just an 18% strikeout percentage. You compare that to last year, he struck out 27% of right-handed hitters since the start of last season. So a big drop off there, like a 9-point drop in strikeout percentage against righties. Expected ISO goes from 147 up to 172 against righties. Against lefties, it goes from 160 up to 268. And the strikeout percentage drops from 19.5% to 11%. Not expecting him to just continue at this rate, because if he does, he's not going to be pitching in the majors for very long. But he has struggled so far. You do get some power in this lineup. Julio Rodriguez is always a good option. Jared Kelenic looks good. Cal Raleigh looks good as a high upside catcher option. Obviously, you can always get the France, Suarez, Hernandez. So I do have some interest in Seattle.
Okay, and then how would you rank the four sides of the game?
Gilbert 1, Mariners 2, Gray 3, Rangers 4.
Okay. Did you know that CP3 is also a great bowler, Adam?
I think I'd heard that. Wouldn't have ever thought of it if you hadn't mentioned it, but I do think I've heard that.
I only mentioned it because people in chat said that. I obviously didn't know that off the top of my head, but apparently, yeah, CP3 also a very good bowler. All right. We have 2 games left on this slate, Miami and Arizona coming back. But another way that you guys can, if you wanted to take advantage of Stokastic, get that lineup generator that Michael was talking about, is just signing up for BetMGM. If you live in a state where you have legal betting, this is as good of an offer as you're ever going to find anywhere. Basically, when you sign up for BetMGM, you're basically getting 2 great deals for the price of one, because you get a free month of Stokastic Plus Platinum, and you also get your first bet covered up to $1,000 paid back in bet credits. So when you sign up, make a deposit, make your first paid wager at BetMGM, whatever amount you want to make that wager. So it can be up to $1,000. It can be, as little as, I think $10 is probably the minimum there. You have to bet at least $10, but whatever bet you make between $10 and $1,000, you're going to get paid back in bet credits if you don't win the bet. If you do win the bet, you're not going to get those bet credits. You're just going to get the money that you won with that bet. But if you don't win the bet, you're going to get paid back in bet credits, whatever the amount was. On top of that, you're going to get a free month of Stokastic Plus Platinum. So all the great tools that we already talked about, the lineup generator, top stacks, top pitchers, top bats, all the different tools that Adam and I are talking about here. And of course, this also includes basketball. Okay? If you're playing NBA, NHL, whatever sports you're playing, this is a free, this is a full month of Stokastic Plus Platinum in total. It's not just the MLB tools. It's all the tools for the entire site for every sport. Use promo code Platinum Sub when you sign up, or use the link in the description of this video when you sign up for BetMGM. Just a fantastic deal, especially when you also get that free month of Stokastic Plus Platinum. That's like $120 value that you're getting for free. Again, use promo code Platinum Sub or the link in the description. Remember, the legal age for gambling in most states is 21 plus. And if you or someone you know has a gambling problem, call or text 1-800-GAMBLER. But yeah, BetMGM, if you have not yet signed up, you're in a state where you can sign up for BetMGM. Highly recommend doing so using promo code Platinum Sub or the link in the description of this video. All right, Adam, 2 games left on the slate. Starting with Miami at Arizona, we've got Braxton Garrett on the mound for the Marlins, Zach Gallen for the Diamondbacks. Any interest in these pitchers?
Gallen looks really good. He's leading the top pitcher tool, 27.5% chance of being a top 2 pitcher, only 29.5% ownership, I guess because he's a little bit more expensive than Cortez and Gilbert, but it's just hard to think the salary is going to matter all that much when you're talking about $800 north of Cortez, $1,200 north of Gilbert. And it's not like Gilbert has a great matchup either. Cortez does. But so I like getting the Gallen. He's been very, very good this year. Since the start of last season, 28.4% strikeout percentage, 2.8 FIP. I just saw a tweet that he's had one of the biggest increases in swinging strike percentage so far this year as well. Striking out 35.2% of hitters with a 3% walk percentage, 1.71 FIP so far this year. So he's always been good. He's been even better now. If Sean V wants to play the revenge narrative, the Diamondbacks did get Zach Gallen for Jazz Chisholm in that trade. So there's that as well. Obviously, doesn't actually matter, but he does look really good. I like it in him quite a bit. Braxton Garrett on the other side is in that bucket with pay down options where I don't really want to get to him, but he is also going under owned compared to other guys. You know, like Miles Michaelis just shouldn't be 17 and a half times as popular as Braxton Garrett for, $400 more. Neither one of them are great options. So I don't think I'm going to be playing much Garrett, but he probably should be a little bit more popular than he is. Gallen, clearly the priority pitching wise, though.
Okay. What about the bats in this game?
The Diamondbacks look good. They have a 5 implied run total here against Garrett. They have plenty of right-handed power in this lineup. Ketel Marte will be hitting from the right side. Rivera, Gurriel, Walker, Longoria, all right-handed. Gabby Moreno is a decent catcher, decent hitting catcher. Good young prospect. He's right-handed. The only two lefties you're likely to have in this lineup are Corbin Carroll and Alec Thomas, both solid young prospects. Carroll in particular, one of the best prospects in baseball. So the Diamondbacks do look like a good stack here. We have them coming in 6th in top stack percentage. So this one kind of surprises me too, just because they do have a 5 implied run total. But 8% chance of being the top stack, 10% ownership. Nothing that, stands out as far as being too popular or, crazily underowned or anything.
Okay. And then how would you rank the 4 sides of the game?
Gallen 1, D-backs 2, Garrett 3, Marlins 4.
Okay. Michael says, sorry I brought up the bowling thing. No, it's a good conversation. I'm glad you brought up the bowling thing. It was fun to talk about a little bit. Adam, have you made any progress on your on potentially getting out of jury duty on Wednesday?
No, I was actually going to look at that today and see if I can just postpone it.
That'd be nice if you can, because currently we're set up for me to do a solo show, and I think it's a live before lock on Wednesday, unless Adam can get out of his jury duty. So we'll see whether we have Adam for that Wednesday show. All right. Final game of the slate here, Adam. We have Washington at San Francisco. Jake Irvin on the mound for the Nationals. Anthony DeSclafani for the Giants. Any interest in either of these pitchers, Adam?
A little bit in DeSclafani, just because he is going up against the Nats. Not the best strikeout team, but not a very good hitting offense. 3.3 implied run total for the Nats. One of the lower run totals on the slate. You have a park that suppresses home runs, so that's good as well. So far this season, a 20.8% strikeout percentage for DeSclafani. He's been just sort of a guy for a while. Not good, not bad, just somebody that you can play in good matchups and typically ignore in not good matchups. 19.7% strikeout percentage since the start of last year, 3.87 FIP. He's just, a decent arm in a pretty good matchup. 21.4% strikeout percentage against righties since last year. He did miss most of last year as well, so limited sample. But since the start of 2021, to get a little bit larger sample, 22% strikeout percentage to righties, 21.5% to lefties. Has had some power issues to lefties with a 191 expected ISO. But, like I said, not a lot of power in the Nats lineup. And this park does a good job of suppressing home runs as well. So, yeah, you're not excited about DeSclafani, but he just projects reasonably well for an $8,100 pitcher. Not interested in getting to Jake Irvin, who I think we talked about last time he started, just doesn't look like he's likely to be anything at the major league level. The Nats as an organization are just sort of at a point where they have they're rebuilding. They lost all of their stars essentially, and they just don't have top prospects ready for the majors yet for the most part. So you're getting guys like Irvin that are 26, just turned 26, and kind of just getting their first chance at the major leagues because they need somebody to pitch, and he's available. So 5 starts at AAA this year, 22 innings pitched, struck out 20% of hitters. Zips projects him for a 19% strikeout percentage. The bats at 16%, 4.9 projected FIP from Zips, 5.5 from the bat. Does not look like a pitcher that I'm looking to get to.
Okay. We got a question from Fantasy Dysfunctional who said he's new to MLB DFS. So I want to cover this. He said, when you talk about stacking, what's the limits in baseball? Like 2 players from a team. Adam, do you want to cover this question? What do we mean when we're talking about stacking?
5 max on DraftKings, 4 on FanDuel.
Yep. And then Is that typically what you'd recommend? So that is the max allowed by the sites. Would you say you're typically using the maximum amount as far as stacks go?
Typically, yeah. I'll use 4 sometimes on DraftKings.
Okay, yeah. Usually on larger slates, we're going to use the maximum that they allow you to do in terms of stacking. Not always, but like usually for me at least, like if it's a game with, if it's a slate with 5 or more games on it, I'm typically going to be playing 5. My primary stack is going to be at least 5 players from one team, 5 batters from one team. And then I'm usually doing a secondary stack as well. So usually I'm going to be doing 5-3 stacks. So you play 8 batters, would be 5 batters from one team, 3 from the second, or 5-2 stacks, which allows you to 5 bats from one team, 2 from a second. And then that kind of having a one-off there allows you to raise your projection a little bit, because sometimes you force in, full stacks of each team. You might be giving up a little bit more in terms of projection. So sometimes allow a one-off there. But then also, as Adam alluded to, sometimes we're also doing like 4-4 stacks, 4-3 stacks. There are different ways that you can stack if you don't want to use the full 5-man stack. So yeah, that's on DraftKings and FanDuel. It's max of 4, and I'm almost always using at least a primary 4-man stack on FanDuel as well. So that's what we're talking about there. All right. Bats in this final game, Washington, San Francisco. Adam, any interest here?
Yeah, certainly on the Giant side, you're going up against a pitcher in Irvin that just doesn't look like he should be any good at all. You do have plenty of good hitters in the Giants lineup, plenty of left-handed power in particular. Lamont and Wade, Jock Peterson are going to look good. Conforto looks good. From the right side, you have Estrada, Davis, Haniger. Just a pretty deep lineup here, 5.2 implied run total. They are high. They're at the top of the top stack stool, just edging out Houston and the White Sox. About 11% chance of being the top stack, about 12% ownership, but also a 13% chance of being the top value. So they are second in stack score behind the White Sox, but there's a big gap between those two teams and everyone else when you factor in value combined with how likely they are to succeed.
Okay, I'm seeing this this chat in YouTube chat about people being squares, being nerds. In my opinion, if you're older than like 18, you're no longer a nerd or square. You're just successful or not successful. I think it's the dumbest thing when people have called me a nerd on Twitter. I'm like, I'm in my upper 30s. I don't give a shit if you think I'm a nerd. Like, it does not matter beyond like high school, maybe college. It matters a little bit, but I always think.
I mean, even in college is when it starts to be like cool to be smart and actually
right. Care. Exactly. It's like, who gives a shit if you think somebody's a nerd? It's just about whether you're successful at some point in life. Anyway. All right. Did you can you rank the 4 sides of this Washington San Francisco game?
Giants 1, Desclafani 2, Nats 3, Irvin 4.
Okay. And then we are at the end of the show now, Adam, so we can talk about starting with if you're in a 3 max contest, you want to do 3 different stacks. Which 3 stacks are you going to?
The way it looks right now, probably Giants, White Sox, and Yankees.
Giants, White Sox, Yankees. All right.
Or Astros.
3 favorite pitchers on this slate.
Gallen, Cortez. So the third answer based on projection is Gilbert, but I kind of in tournaments like the idea of moving some of Gilbert to like Dylan Cease or Hunter Brown.
Okay. Actually, I want to go to this quick. Corey Jefferson asks, do you recommend no gap on your stacks, or do you care?
I don't care.
Yeah, I don't care either. One thing that I do sometimes, and I go back and forth on this, is so on my full like primary stack, 5 or 4 man primary stack, I don't care at all. I don't set any kind of rule. I do sometimes if I'm doing a 5-2 stack on my 2-man secondary stack, I will set a max gap of 2 on that, which I go back and forth on whether that's a good idea. But just because there's obviously less correlation when you're just dealing with 2 batters, and if it's like the 2 hole and the 6 hole or the 7 hole, it's like that's obviously not as good of correlation. So I do sometimes on that.
Yeah, I've done that too. Typically I don't, but I have kind of had the same exact thoughts and done it.
Yeah. Steven Leibowitz, man, he says, I'm retiring on my Harper Dong pick the other day. Yeah, I actually went back and looked because I saw that my Jorge Soler earlier in the day pick he hit a home run. So I was like, did I go 2 for 2 today? And I went back to look, and I saw that my pick of Justin Turner did not hit a home run. But then, of course, my Bryce Harper pick, which was the most obvious pick, because I was going to go with Kyle Schwarber just like you did. I decided to swap off of. I didn't want to do the same pick as you, obviously. So I should have just gone directly to Harper, but I didn't think of him. I think just because Harper hadn't been playing, I didn't think of like the other big lefty bat in the Phillies lineup. So I went to Justin Turner, and then immediately regretted it. And then, of course, it was Bryce Harper who hit the home run. But on that note, Adam, what who are home run picks today? Who are you going for?
Give me Torres.
All right, let me see.
I don't think there's a lot of really easy ones today. It's a lot of like good pitchers in tougher parks and vice versa.
Yeah. Rizzo's lefty on lefty. Maybe I'll go there anyway. Yeah, I'll just do that. Going back and forth here. No, I'm going to go with Ohtani here. Ohtani against Hunter Brown. I think he can hit a home run there. All right, Adam, we have made it to the end of the show. Do you have any final thoughts?
I will have my baseball and I think basketball. I don't know how many games are tonight. I think there's 2. If there's 2, basketball articles out. Bet Pro video will be out, and then I'll be back for the NBA deeper dive with Lofty at I think 5:30 Eastern.
Sounds right. And then I will be back with Greg at 6:30 Eastern for the Live Before Lock. Thank God I've still avoided all of the showdown slates for NBA, Adam. I've been on like every day that there is a 2-game slate. I'm on the show Live Before Lock. I have yet to do a single showdown. At some point I obviously will. But yeah, I'll be back there. That's actually the next thing on the docket for me as well. So check me and Adam out tonight on those NBA shows. Thank you guys very much for walking in. Again, if you have not yet liked the video, please do so. Subscribe to the channel, hit that notification button so you can get alerts when our shows go live. And we will see you tonight on the NBA shows.